A price tag of more than $1 billion. That's what it could cost for Wichita schools to fix every problem at every school.
The findings come from a consulting firm hired by the district to help create a long-term master plan. School board members heard details this week.
As Brandon Stitt learned, this could possibly mean the closure of some buildings in the future. Brandon?
Yeah, Wichita has 54 elementary schools, and many of them, according to this study, are underused, old, and just falling apart. And to save money, it's possible the school district may need to close or consolidate some schools. But when you ask that, we don't have an answer to. And building troubles aren't the only concerns on the list.
Many of those schools themselves have significant condition needs.
Needs that, if fixed, would cost Wichita schools $1.1 billion over the next 5 years. Take a look at the district's footprint. There are about 100 buildings across the city. 54 of those elementary schools. And buildings aren't the only issue.
We are projecting continued decrease in student enrollment in our district.
In a recent overview of the school district, a consulting group found that 24 of the 54 elementary schools have fewer than 350 students, and the middle schools are underused by 38%, leaving more than 18,000 vacant seats district-wide. Director of Facilities Luke Newman.
The facts are that we have aging buildings and they're underutilized, and so we're going to need to do something.
I will not recommend a scenario that says, you know what, just keep everything the same and pay $1 billion over the next 5 years.
With the current building use,
our target utilization for buildings, to answer that question, is generally you want to be between 80 and 90%. And some of our buildings are quite a bit lower than that.
To get to that number, a recommendation to close some schools is possible.
Our goal is to provide the best possible facilities we can to all students. What that looks like could be a variety of things. It may not be keeping all of our buildings open. It may be.
As far as what schools could close, that's not clear.
As far as getting deeper into looking at those specific buildings and what might need to be done in various ways, we're really not at that point yet.
District staff, along with the consulting firm, is expected to have a final report with those recommendations by May or June. That's when the school board is expected to make a decision.